And now you do. So we'll do it again. Yellow again, everybody. It's Randy Hales. This is the June 4th edition of the Randy Hales Show. Man alive, last night, talking Memphis Wrestling, had all kinds of technical problems because I couldn't hear anything. I just heard that opening theme, so that's a good thing. Now, you guys in the audience can help me out. Greg, Raleigh, Thomas, anybody watching the Ready Hill Show right now, please comment to me, talk to me, and let me know right now. Greg, Raleigh, or Thomas, let me know if you can hear my audio right now here on June the 4th. So I need help from the audience. I need help from you guys. I need to make sure you write me right now, and I'm not getting any comments back, and it makes me think that Greg is the first person that came in and said he can hear me. This is going to be a show that we're going to just randomly go through it. In a little bit, we are going to put a link up there where you guys can join the show. Ask Roy, ask RH anything, but we're going to do something right now. And Thomas is saying it's coming in clear as it can be. So I can hear audio, you guys can hear me. So certainly it's better off than it was yesterday, and that's a good thing. I'm going to do something for 3 minutes and 3 seconds. We hadn't done it a long time. Written by Jimmy Hart, a classic deal on the biggest wrestling event I ever booked in my life.
I found a program stuck back in my drawer. It was faded, it was torn. I couldn't wait till I looked inside. Some are gone, some are still alive. I watched them every Saturday on TV. I couldn't wait till they climbed in the ring. Monday night memories are all I have to remind me of you. Jerry Lawler, he's the king. Austin Idol, superstar Dundee. Handsome Jimmy, he's so cool. Jimmy Hart acted like a silly fool. I watched them every Saturday on TV. I couldn't wait till they climbed in the ring. Monday night memories are all I have to remind me of you. Jackie Fargo said, "Put up your dukes." The girls thought the fabulous ones were cute. Sputnik Monroe, Don and Al Green, the Gilberts and the Funks, I thought they were so mean. I watched them every Saturday on TV. I couldn't wait till they climbed in the ring. Monday night memories are all I have to remind me of you. Jerry Jarrett told Joe Yamamoto when he died, it hurt me so. Eddie Marlin, Buddy Wayne, Guy Coffey, hope they never change. Lance Russell, they call Banana Nose. Dave Brown was his sidekick, everybody knows. Monday night memories are all I have to remind me of you. Monday night memories are
that video first aired a long time ago. That video first aired on March the 4th, 1994, a long time ago. Hey everybody, I want to welcome everybody to the show from Cape Cod, Massachusetts. My niece, Tracy Wise, who's been out on the boat, been out doing crazy stuff, been out golfing, having a heck of a time on the East Coast. Hello, Tracy, what's going on? Toby's in the house. What's going on with you? Greg is here. Gregory White is here. All kinds of people, and we appreciate you watching the Randy Hales show right now. This is a Ask RH show. Ask RH show as we're live as live can be. And now, as I got us on the air, and because I don't know how I got us on the air, but Adam Dunn, I can tell you right now, I got us on the air. Apparently, the audience knows that I am talking to them. They can actually hear me. They can hear me talking, and I can hear video because I just showed the Monday Night Memory video as well. Hey, this is my problem, Adam. This is the technical problem. And this is where you save the day. This is where I suck at. This is where if you can join me and instruct me on how to do it. Because I tried to do the countdown. I tried to add a scene. And I did add a scene. And I changed it. I changed it. Listen to my problem. Because you weren't on at the time for you to do it, and I had to do it, and I screwed it up. But I did the 2 minute countdown. It started at 2 and went to 0, and then it stuck there, and I had to get rid of it. Then I came on the screen. But the problem was I could not get audio. It didn't have music. So what did I do wrong?
Okay, so what did you press to do a countdown with?
I went to add scene,
Yep.
then I went to countdown,
Yep.
and changed it to 2 minutes.
Okay,
That's
yeah,
how I
so,
did it.
so as soon as you do that, it starts the countdown. So it took us off the screen and it did it. But in order to change anything on that countdown, you have to hover over the time and then click on your options to change stuff. You can change how long it is, the text, the music, whatever. But you have to do it on that countdown screen and then get it set up before you go on the air.
Before it goes on the air.
Yes.
All right, what's going on with you? Can you tell that so far this show is not nearly as disastrous as what we had on the air last night, thanks to my darn computer and thanks to you that walked me through it at the end of the night off the air and hooked these speakers. First time I've had speakers on in a long time. I still can't get it out of my cool expensive speakers here, but at least I can hear and there's no feedback, right?
You're right. Yeah. So did you do what we talked about? Did you just plug the headphone straight into the headphone jack on the front of the computer tower?
Yes, and you told me to do that when we were first having the issues. However, at that point, as I look down here, I can't really see. So once I think I got it going when we were on the phone last night, and I got it
Yeah.
plugged in. But yeah, I got that going. Hey, City by the Bay, what is going on, Carlton? How about you, Toby? Ogman is in the house as this is going to be a Ask RH Day, and we'll give an option a little later on for you guys to come on. But Adam, what have you been doing today?
Not much, just doing some stuff for work. I've got some contractors that I'm moving into a couple of different areas in Alabama to do some fiber optic builds. So I was meeting with them and getting some stuff set up for that. So that's kind of been most of my day today.
So you're doing your real job, not your play job like this, right?
Correct. Yep. And I've got to do some radio station stuff tonight.
Hey Joe, what is happening with you? I appreciate you watching. City by the Bay, you hadn't been on this show in a long time. On my Twitter page at RB Hills, also on my Facebook page at Randy Hills, there's links to join this show because I haven't had City by the Bay in a long time from California. Would love to have him on the show right now. I put in the comment section, and I am listed as a host. You guys can click on that, get you right here. Also on the, by the way, Greg's saying he just finished mowing the backyard, and Adam has a whole big field that I bet he needs to mow.
I do because I was out of town last weekend. It's been raining so much, and it rained even a little bit today. Not too bad. So I'm hoping I can maybe try to mow some tomorrow afternoon, tomorrow evening. I've got about 3.5 acres. I need to go out there and mow. So yep, I understand that.
I'm Randy Hills. He's Adam Dunn. And would you ranking all the shows? We've been doing some form of this show since I was at Eddie Marlin's house in 2018, 2019. How would you rank last night's show on the disaster scale?
I think the only real problem that people at home probably noticed was for some reason your camera was backwards, and then you just had a lot of echoey sound that we were unable to take care of on your end. So I'm sure that was aggravating for people to listen to, but as far as watching it, I think we were pretty good as far as that goes. But yeah, Greg, yeah, we covered that last night about R-Truth getting released from WWE. Um,
Yeah, we talked about that quite a lot. There was an editorial about that when I wasn't able to talk, and I think I cleared that up. Do you?
yeah, as far as a lot of people, of course, have opinions on why and how, and
He must have done something wrong, was one of the things Michael
yeah,
said.
and
Must have,
I haven't
Vince have
read
been
that
fired. No,
or
it,
seen
it
anything that would seem to indicate that he did anything wrong. I'm sure it was a lot of just
money.
money. Yeah,
It's corporate wrestling running wrestling. We've talked about that
yes,
for weeks
yeah,
now.
yeah,
That's exactly. It's you can say everything bad you want to about Vince McMahon, and believe me, there's plenty.
yeah.
However, he was a wrestling guy. Now they're not wrestling guys, and they don't care if somebody's been there 50 years. Probably Truth was making millions and $1 million a year because he'd been there for so long. He was being taken care of. He wasn't on a full time schedule. He's 53 years old, and now they're the company's being run not for the fans go out and buy a ticket. It's being run to keep Wall Street happy, and that's
Right, and it's
exactly what
just
it is.
the mechanisms and how they make money has changed so much too. Somebody that's used to territory wrestling and loves territory wrestling and that type of stuff, the ways in which you guys made your money determines so much. And it's even where, if you look at even how some territories were done, the Memphis territory was, unique in that the TV was basically in Memphis an hour and a half infomercial for the live events. And just like it was an hour infomercial in the other markets for the live events, all during CWA and USWA. And then when Power Pro came along, it wasn't a 1 hour infomercial for the live events anymore. It was more focused on being a weekly episodic television show where you didn't necessarily get your culmination of everything every Monday night at the Coliseum. It would be handled on TV. And even now, you went from having a WWF that was on like a USA Network and a Fox that now has gone to a streaming platform, and the ways in which they get their revenue and contracts, they have guaranteed money just from Netflix, regardless of how in person attendance goes. And that would have been unthinkable in the 80s. your in-person attendance was where all your money came from, and then the guys could make money off of gimmick sales or whatever. Now there's so many revenue streams that you've got people that are making money from doing web shows, doing personal appearances, selling gimmicks, and then their just base contract that they have with WWE and all that. It's a whole different business structure. And like you say, our truth may be somebody who's popular with. I'm sure he's one of those people that's probably very popular with the boys and with everybody that's there, very popular with the people watching. But is he a revenue generating thing as much as another person? And so they're going to look at things more of just a line item of cost versus expense. And even when this all first happened, you take somebody like Jerry Lawler that had been with them for a very, very long time, but somebody at some point, I'm sure, did a cost benefit analysis on him. The fact that, unfortunately isn't able to commentate like that anymore, that they said, okay, well, they probably don't have the fear of him going to AEW or anything like that. So just a decision was made, right? And this may not be a decision that we would agree with or that we would do, just like we wouldn't want to see our truth go because of how long he's been there. But are decisions like that made to where they're looking at, well, if he's out, who can we bring in? What's going to pop a rating or whatever? Because the one thing we have seen is that, and this is all you got to take it in the prism of how it's happening, but the Netflix ratings I've read the past few times have been really, really low. Does that have them concerned? And then you see something like the Nick Khan guy selling off stock and stuff, and people have speculation about that. So it sounds like there's just kind of a lot going on with that company. And so they're making different moves and things from a financial standpoint. And like you said, Randy, that's all going to be stockholder Wall Street driven, not what the fans want.
Now, Vince McMahon took the company public years ago. However, he ran it like he always ran it, any
Right.
way he wanted to, like a family owned business. It's not that anymore. WCW had all the problems they had back in the years because once Jim Crockett sold to Turner, the Turner people, once they took control, ran it like a corporation. And
Right.
you found a graphic one time about corporate wrestling, and we had that on the show a couple weeks ago. I think I deleted that, and that
Yeah,
was
I think it was a Jeff Jarrett graphic from Conrad's podcast.
that was I think I deleted it, but it wasn't on this folder anyway. It
Right.
was on the talking Memphis wrestling. So besides the R-Truth situation, what do you guys want to talk about tonight? Do you want to talk about any speculation? I don't. I do want to bring up one thing that I think is very interesting. It's probably been uh, so much is hitting my mind right now, like going crazy with different things. But it's been a long time since you had promotion wars. I don't mean the Smoky Mountain USWA promotion war that was a storyline driven, a thing for television. I remember real life. Of course, the most famous is WWF and WCW, and before that it was of course Jim Crockett Promotions as the NWA against the WWF. That's sort of thing. Now, are you aware of some of the predatory stuff? And of course, you can say it's just business, but if it's just, uh, they also say, oh, AEW's absolutely no competition. Have you heard about the moves they've made lately, the WWE, to combat AEW, Adam?
I haven't. The only things that I've seen lately that seem kind of interpro, I don't know if I can say the word, interpromotional, is I saw, I think it was Nick Nemeth saying something about the Joe Hendry guy. I guess maybe he had a title and he lost that company's title at another company. I saw him saying something about that. And then I seen there was a girl that was on AEW that I think she just debuted at NXT, maybe like a day or two after she was on an AEW show. That's the only things that I've seen lately that seem like they're a cross between the two different companies.
Coming up in 5 or 6 weeks is it's a pay-per-view, and it's the very first United States themed, and it's in Dallas, Texas at Jerry's World. It's the very first AEW stadium show in the United States. They've done it obviously and was very successful at that, doing it in English. And hello, Walker, what's going on? I appreciate you watching the Randy Hales show. So this is what happened. They were going to have it on a Saturday night. On a Saturday night, pay per view. Then all of a sudden, the WWE scheduled on NBC a uh, free primetime show, Saturday night show against them,
So
and we
same time slot
same time shot
for free.
for free, and so then uh, AEW said, well, we'll change our show to 2 o'clock in the afternoon. So they changed to 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and then the WWE then booked a NXT pay per view at 2 o'clock in the
Oh, wow.
afternoon on pay per view. You tell me. So them
So they
saying,
obviously consider them competition.
oh, obviously.
Yeah. Funny question there that Randy, I know you can answer. And Randy and I talked about this one time. Toby says he'd like to know what it was like in the back locker rooms of the TV studio. Was it all business, or what was the atmosphere like? I can just tell you, it to me that was always kind of funny and unique. I'll just give a little personal thing. So during at least during the Power Pro time, and I think during USWA a little bit as well, there was like a break room canteen area, you may call it, at Channel 5 that kind of that had like some tables and chairs, and it was just the break room. So just Monday through Friday, or Sunday through Friday, that was just where the people from the TV station, when it was lunchtime or take a break, whatever, that's just where they would go. um, but on Saturdays, of course, that was used as like a wrestler's dressing area, and there was even a sign. I think James Estes wound up with the sign, but there was a sign that said "Wrestlers only, enter at your own risk." That almost had like a caricature of like a carnival wrestler or something on the photo. But I just always thought, how interesting would it be if you were a up and coming news reporter, right? And at that time, you make your break. You're at a top 50 state. You're in a top 50 market in Memphis, at the number one station in town. And let's say you got assigned the weekend beat, right? And you don't know nothing about Memphis wrestling or anything like that. So imagine you come into work on a Saturday morning, and there's just a lot, and especially think about this in today's context. But you come to work on a Saturday morning to a TV station. There's a line of people out in the parking lot that are at the back door that you normally come in. So you got to wade past all those people to get in. And then you get in and you go in the break room, and there's a bunch of guys in there changing clothes. And you're just in the TV station hearing this loud audience and group of people, and you realize that there's pro wrestling going on. How odd do you think that was for people that were new to the station or didn't know anything about it? Because what other TV station had done wrestling in 20 years, right? So that had to be such a weird experience for like a young reporter coming into the market to have like a live studio wrestling. And as me from a production standpoint, that had to be neat for the people that work production that were used to just doing a rigid, perfect newscast day after day after day. Then now they can go in there and shoot a live sports event like that. The only other thing I really remember that studio being used for during the Power Pro time was that during high school football, Jarvis Greer and Harold Grader would do Friday Football Fever in there the night before, and it was kind of neat because the bleachers were still in there that the fans sat in, so it kind of made it have kind of like a football look. Then, of course, I think during the week they used it in the 80s and 90s for Wake Up Call and stuff like that. But that was just kind of my experience with it. Is I remember being there in the late 90s and sitting back there, and the guys are just out there changing and enter at your own risk.
From a different perspective, let me answer the question. And once again, Adam, go ahead and read Toby's question for me.
I would like to know what it was like in the back locker rooms of the TV studio. Was it all business, or what was the atmosphere like? And I think you can probably speak to too, like maybe there were some kind of individual bathrooms slash rooms that were used as offices, and then of course later on, I think you're able to use the conference room on the second floor.
Yes, TV was the most important day of the week, and we were there for business. I'll be honest, I spent very, very little time in that canteen area. We'd walk in, if normally I was the first one there from the wrestling company. I would go to one of those little bathrooms that I used as an office, and it also Jerry Lawler's dressing room and the office were the same thing. And there was another smaller room. Both had showers, and over the years, Bill Dundee had dressed in that, and Jeff Jarrett had dressed in that one as well. Then in the Power Pro time, and this was real nice. They once, and if you would speak of this real quick, briefly, FM 100 and WMC 79 was in a part of the WMC family of
Right.
stations. By this point, there was a conference room for FM 100. These days, that's gone. But
Right.
just set up the quick background of where WMC 79 was and where FM 100 was.
Yeah, and I may get this wrong, Randy. So step in if I do. Television was, the newsroom and Studio A, Studio B, and all of that were both on the bottom floor, and then you had the third floor at the top was mostly offices for executive offices and things like that. I know you had radio on the second floor, and I can't remember if AM and FM were both on the second floor. Is that right, or was AM in a different spot?
AM, and I have a question for you too,
Yeah.
but AM was on the first floor. Now,
Okay.
when you came, the time you were there, and the one that you always bring up is when you rode with Coco.
Right.
Which door did you come in?
So when I came, so there was the front door that led into the lobby. There was the side door where most of the fans came in, right? And there
And where
was
the ring came in?
Yes, yeah, right beside where the roll up door was for the ring. And then when I came with Coco, there was a door that kind of the building kind of made a L, and the tower was right there, and there was a door right there where you could come in that was kind of in the back, and that's where I came in that day. And the security guard had a list, and that list had everyone's name on it, and you had to be on that list to be able to get in that door.
So you're in the canteen area, and
Yes.
you're going out, leaving at that point, and you go through that doorway, and it's really not a door there, but then there's a hallway, and that's where AM 79 was back
Okay,
in
yeah,
the
because I
day.
remember because from where I was sitting in the canteen, there was like a long hallway that went out, and those bathrooms were kind of on the left as you walked out, and then you kind of went and did like this, and then you were at the door to go into the studio.
Right. And if you keep going straight, the receptionist's desk and the front
Yeah,
entrance, and this is before they put a gate around, and
right.
not it was not near as security conscious as it is
Yeah, and
now.
when I worked at WHBQ in the mid 2000s, It was kind of it was a similar setup to Channel 5 at one time, where the control room was on the second level and you could look down into the studios like you could at WMC. But when I worked there, they had moved the control room downstairs and they had moved the news into the larger studio, and they still had a second studio, but it was really small. It was kind of like what eventually wound up happening at WMC, where you guys were in the wrestling was in the larger studio and the news was in the smaller studio. And then some years after the wrestling was over, they moved everything into that larger studio, and that smaller studio eventually went away. And I think that's kind of where Master Control is now. And during that time, I think it was Infinity Broadcasting had bought the radio stations, so the AM 790 and FM 100, and I think they moved 93X in that building at one time also. And then you had that PAX 50, I think, turned into Ion 50, but it was basically in a closet. It didn't really have a big studio.
Going back to the thing, it was a hectic day for me. So as soon as you get there, I go to the conference room or I go into the little office. Uh, at the point I got there, the talent wasn't there. Talent would drift in. At this point, I would have formats that would already be in the dressing area or the canteen area. They can look at where it's going to be, and I would major stuff on the show. I would go over, bring the talent in, and would go over it. Other stuff like finishes for the matches, that sort of thing. Brandon would go around and take care of that. And then once Dave and Corey would get there, and before that, it was always Lance and Dave, and then at one point Lance, Dave, and Corey. So I was busy from that point, walking in the building to the time the show was over. With you were at TV with Coco that time. How many times did you see me in that canteen area? Zero.
Zero. And you were actually on air that day, but yeah, I didn't see you at all in that canteen area. There was a monitor, kind of like it wasn't hanging. It wasn't. There weren't flat screens yet, so it was. But it was kind of up high on the wall, and there was like maybe four or half a dozen tables that were kind of sitting there, and we were sitting there, and you could watch that monitor there. And then depending on which entrance you wanted to come out, you could kind of like say kind of go dogleg through there to that entrance where for Power Pro, where the Power Pro banner was hanging, or you could cut through and kind of go through that hallway that had tapes on the wall and get into that area in between the two studios and come in that entrance.
As far as the atmosphere, for me, it was all business. I think the wrestlers would be concerned of what they were going to do, and they
Yeah.
would spend a lot of time talking about the business they were going to uh, be done. So it had the combination typical wrestling locker room, but toned down. First of all, TV is the most important day of the week. That's on their mind, certainly. But there was still the bullshit. There was the stories being told and the lies being told and all that kind of stuff. From my perspective, it just never stopped the whole time I was in the building. And then after the show was over, whether I was going to talk to Derek King and fuss at him on something that I didn't like that he did or any other name, or put him over. If Derek would have had a hell of a match, I would have told him that.
So,
Or if there's corrections to be done, and I would say it was not all business the entire time. For the most part, I would think that it was relaxed, but it was relaxed in a pressure way because that was a
live
pressure
TV,
day.
right?
Yeah, live TV days. So that was our business, and so like any other locker room, sometimes you have people being pricks, and sometimes that happens. But most people, it was drilled in their head: you screw up a TV, you're out of a job
Right, because
because
that's yeah, and
we didn't want to make Channel 5 mad at us.
right, exactly. And so, and I can remember during like the CWA, USWA days, you had a floor director that was kind of out on the floor that kind of stood by the monitor and maybe behind that main camera that shot the commentator's desk and could get some messages across that way. And whether that was coach or
Shadow.
whoever in later years, Shadow, Carl, whatever. And then in the Power Pro days, you didn't really have a floor director. So a lot of times, whenever you do something backstage or whatever, the camera person would just cue them or whatever. But during the Power Pro days, I know you had somebody like a Tony Falk that was sitting at what most people would call like a gorilla position, kind of right by that one entryway. I think there's almost like a monitor sitting on a monitor, and Tony could have a headset on because he could be downstairs. You mentioned that you weren't really in that canteen dressing room area a lot. When you weren't on air and weren't in that canteen area, were you in the control room?
I was usually in that conference room. So I was in the little small room in the beginning and in the entirety of the USWA days because we didn't have access to that conference room. James Estes, the director, is the one say, "Hey, we have a free room and it'll be
Yeah,
better for you." And there was a phone and they could call you and from downstairs and it was very interesting. Calvin Lindsay says hello to both of us. Drew was a little stressed last night that I wasn't on the air, especially at the Open. So thanks again to Rusty, Dr. Robinson, that got us up and going. But thinking about this and Toby's question, it's something that I did for so many different times. But it's interesting that Toby would ask that question of what kind of atmosphere that was. It was not quite business as usual, but it was certainly more of a wrestling locker room type of atmosphere than it would have been. And you can speak of this and what the atmosphere with the TV people is for a newscast. And you
yeah,
see the difference.
absolutely, yeah. And like you said, and even in the Power Pro days, you didn't necessarily you didn't smarten up the production people, right? So you had your, and this is the thing about people. Again, this is just a difference in wrestling. You know, at TV, especially something like a Channel 5, it's a television show first that features wrestling. So you have to format it that way. And so the production people would have a rundown of, okay, we're going to have the open sound on tape, it's 30 seconds, and we're going to go to Lance and Dave or Dave and Corey, and they're going to run down the card, and then we're going to pitch to a break or whatever. So you kind of had those segments laid out, and you may tell them, hey, after this segment, we want to do something outside, or after this segment, we're going to have something here. You may have some things pre-taped, blah blah blah, whatever. But that was about the extent of what the production people knew. They didn't get the actual, well, here's who's winning and here's what they're saying and blah 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 and all that. They had the actual rundown. And I think, Randy, you would oftentimes maybe get that to James on a Friday, or if something happened, you may bring it with you Saturday morning. And back like in the USWA days, if you had pre-tape stuff or videos or things that Randy West put together, one of the wrestlers might bring that with them. You might bring it with you or whatever, and you would take that to E&G for them to have.
It would be me or Eddie.
Right, you or Eddie would take that to have for E&G to play back during the show. And then during the USWA or during the bicycle tape days, somebody would be in the back, whether it was like a buddy or somebody like that, would be rolling tape for the bicycle, keeping time on that. And since the Memphis show was 90 minutes, you had whole segments of the program that were black that would not get recorded for the bicycle. So when you took that to Randy, Randy would have to edit, but it wasn't necessarily that Randy was editing for time or whatever. Sometimes he would, but it was more okay, you need to drop this 2 minutes in here or this minute promo in here or whatever, because you had already formatted the show when you did the live show. Yes, it's 90 minutes, but here's the 30 minutes, and these, take this segment here, this segment here, that won't be recorded for the hour show. And so a lot of times, if you go back and watch like a USWA or something, you'll see them run down the card, and it'll be the Mid South area, Memphis, Caruthersville, Jonesboro, Dyersburg, something like that. And then somebody will come out to the desk and do some type of interview or maybe even an angle or something, but it would be just for that Memphis market. And then the other markets flat out wouldn't get that. And then also, in addition to that, would have a minute or a 2 minute promo or something that was specifically, this is for Evansville, this is for Louisville, this is for Nashville.
Tanner is in the house. He says, evening all, evening to you, and I appreciate you watching this here program today. We will probably try to get to about 7:30 today, and I'm looking because we've had so much going on lately with all kinds of stuff going on, and haven't heard a lot or had time for much videos. But right now, this quick 15-second promo, Jerry Lawler doesn't like Yankees. With that I'm done. I'm Randy Hales on the Randy Hales Show.
And it's no secret, I've been going up to New York City and been doing some wrestling and commentating up in the WWF and telling those Yankees up there, for some reason those Yankees just don't like people from the South. And I don't like them either. And I just tell them exactly what I think about them up there.
That was short and quick from Jerry Lawler, and I think you.
That felt like what, maybe 92, 93?
Yeah, for sure. And I'm going to have you read this Bo James deal. This is something that I was ignoring, and but we will. I gave a politically correct answer, but TV was so important. Adam, read Bo James' comment that's on the screen right now.
Bo says, if we could go back to Saturday mornings at TV5, I have memos from RH somewhere about some people's behavior at TV5. Now, a lot of times, Randy, was that a proactive thing where you heard about it and you said something, or would you only do that if somebody from Channel 5 said something and you're like, hey, guys, don't do that again?
A little bit of both. No, certainly we were very conscious. We didn't want it to be I might turn my head and not say nothing if I walk into the dressing room at the Mid-South Coliseum and somebody's sneaking a beer.
Right.
I might not say something.
Yeah, oh, yeah, you're definitely not doing that at Channel 5.
No, I would say something.
Yes, yeah, so that may be something, that would be probably one of the biggest things. I remember when I was there, I don't remember seeing anybody even thinking about or trying to drink anything or smoke or doing anything nefarious at all. Everybody was just kind of sitting around, like you said. They were kind of more focused on what they were doing. And I don't think I saw anybody from the TV station come into the canteen during that time. But I'm sure the ones that were there knew, okay, for a couple hours on Saturday morning, that's basically just off limits.
It's certainly Power Pro days. It was lax a little bit, but way back in the day, certainly you'd never see anybody do
Now,
that. Tanner
I'm curious because I've seen it on TV a couple times, and I'd always kind of wondered. You had that canteen area that kind of at one time everybody was kind of back there. Like I said, kind of during Power Pro, you mostly that one entrance was used. Kind of sometimes you'd use both, but like it wasn't necessarily like an arena where like you had a heel and a face or whatever. You might, depending on what's going on, you might have one guy coming through one entrance and one guy coming through the other. But it seemed like too at one time, I know there was a monitor in the news studio, and I think sometimes wouldn't some people hang out in that studio or in that area as well?
Yeah, let me get to Jeremy's
Sure.
question real quick, and then I'll answer that. You've
I,
already kind
I
of
know
laid
Randy's
out.
answer to this, but go ahead.
I've laid out uh, how you laid out how the setup was at the TV station. I'll get to that in a minute. Jeremy says, "Good evening, Randy and Adam. What was the favorite feud of the '90s in the USWA?" No doubt. I mean, absolutely. I don't know if you ask 500 people that was there in the '90s, they would say the best feud was USWA and Smoky Mountain,
Yep,
without
1995, right?
without out a doubt. In the early '90s, I think you would probably say Jeff Jarrett and Jerry Lawler against the Moondogs. I think
Yeah, it
in
was
the
like 93,
and
I
I
think.
think
Yeah.
in the '90s you can also throw in there the Texas Tennessee feud. So there's several, but
Hmm.
the best business was
It's
that.
so interesting because it kind of depends on your style and what you like and who was booking and things like that. There's a lot of times people will talk about things in the 80s and oh, that was great, that was this and I don't say this negatively, but a lot of times for CWA and even a good chunk of USWA, people will credit Jerry Jarrett almost 100% with whatever happened. And Jerry Jarrett did a lot of great things, and there was a lot of good stuff that he did do. But there was times of that to where Lawler may have been booking, Dundee may have been booking, and or just different people altogether may have been booking. Of course, I'm sure it was all with Jerry's blessing, but it's
Usually when he
interesting.
wasn't booking, he wasn't around. He didn't have a clue.
Yeah, yeah, that you did get to that point during USWA, absolutely, to where he's what wasn't going on at all. So I would say what anything from 93 into 93, 94 to beginning of 97, he had nothing to do, right?
Now, in '83, the year that Lawler booked and the power play and all that,
Right,
Jarrett was not around any town, any TVs, not once. He was
right.
privy of what the booking was. Ritter reached out uh, to me the other day on Facebook Messenger. He says he needs a match between Lawler and Dundee when Dundee's wife Harry it was hair at stake. To my knowledge, that's not available anywhere. Are you aware of the match Lawler
No,
and Dundee with
of course,
Brandon
seen the
Hales?
promo where Beverly comes out and all that stuff, but no, I don't think I've seen the actual match. Um, I haven't seen it on YouTube or anything like that. But yeah, that was just kind of to my point, Randy, is that if you liked the 90s Texas USWA stuff, well, that may have been Eric Embry booking or whatever. If you liked Smoky Mountain USWA, that was all you. If you liked PG-13, originally, in the early years versus when they got their push with you against the rock and roll and all that stuff. So it kind of depends to where if you got like if you like the monster stuff, well, no, that was all Lawler, right? And so it just depends. There's eras in there where you probably had Eddie Gilbert doing some booking, eras where you had Dutch Mantell doing some booking. So it's my point there is just to say that if it's CWA USWA, there's big chunks of that were not Jerry Jarrett. And as you pointed out, not only were they not his booking, he may have been totally hands off on it.
Now let me go back and answer something you were talking about. There's of course the wrestling studio and the little hall that's connected to the next studio was a studio that was then used for TV. Back when I first started going to television, the Hills would dress in the canteen area.
Mm-hmm.
Period. That's only the Hills. Period. Then the baby faces would dress in the new studio.
Yeah.
They would dress there, and then as things evolved, that changed, and
Right.
everybody dressed in the canteen area because at that point we weren't. I forgot what happened, or maybe the TV station bitched about spit cups being left around, or
Right.
whatever. Uh, we weren't allowed in the news studio.
Right.
Period.
Yeah. And I could just, that could make sense. Anything could have happened. There's so much equipment and stuff in there. And granted, you had the same equipment in the wrestling studio, but the news set was so much smaller, and having all that stuff kind of clumped up right there together. I think one of the neatest things that documents that, and we've shown it, but I think it was when the oh gosh, what was his name? The guy that had the show before Letterman, was it Snyder? Tom
Tom
Snyder?
Snyder.
Tom
Yeah.
Snyder. When Tom Snyder did his story on Memphis wrestling, there's a part where they've got their cameras at Channel 5 and they're showing the part where Lawler's doing a promo talking about Dundee. And then they have a camera and it's in the news studio and it's showing Dundee watching the monitor his reaction to what Lawler's saying about him. So that was during the time when, like you said, you had the heels in the canteen and the faces in the news studio. I think when I was there during the Power Pro era, everybody was just back in the canteen area.
Except you never saw me.
No. So, like I say, you were either in a conference room or up,
Or on air.
or on air. So that too. So, like, just in a typical day, say, it's 1990, whatever, 94, 95, 96. Where is Randy Hales at during a 90-minute USWA TV? Are you in the control room? Are you running around backstage? What are you doing if you're not on air?
When I got back from in '93, I was either on air or in the control room. Period. One of the others, or if you would be mad at somebody and you come down to talk to somebody or whatever. Sometimes some of the talent would come upstairs and ask me a question. That happens sometimes. Sometimes somebody would ask Tony Falk for a headset, and they would ask to talk to me, and we would do it that way. But the majority of the time, I was on air or in the control room.
You hear a lot about people talking about Vince McMahon being in their ear. Like if they're an announcer, they're always screaming at Michael Cole or screaming at somebody. How often were you in Lance and Dave or Dave and Corey's ear?
Now, I would never yell at them, either one of them. I never yelled at an announcer off or on the air at all. But I would say it was always quick thing. I might say pitch to the Lawler video. Uh, might say uh, remind them uh, at the end of this match interview Billy Travis or
Right.
just so they don't have to look at the
Yeah, stuff
format
they
their
would
whole.
have that on their rundown, but sometimes if something changed or got moved or whatever, the quickest way for you to communicate that is just hop on headset and tell them.
Yeah, and I would tell them, I say, hey, that last segment went 4 minutes over. We need to make up some time. I'll do it on our part. Y'all do it on yours. Do it quick,
Right.
quick. So uh, I didn't. I tried because I know Dave and Lance. Neither one of them like to be talked too much
Right.
because they didn't need it.
They didn't need it. And also, if you're talking in your mid sentence and someone all of a sudden jumps in your ear, that's just very distracting thing to have happen.
Tanner asking if did they wear a earpiece, and I can't remember when that started. I would guess the USWA days, because in the CWA days when I was there and left in '89, no, they did not wear earpieces. But
Yeah,
I would
yeah,
guess the USWA days.
they call those an IFB, and they basically, you can see it a lot in USWA in like the 90s and stuff. It was like a silver box about this big, and you would clip the microphone cable in, and you would clip the plug in for the IFB, and usually you kind of like put it in the small of your back or something like that. And you'll notice when they walk out, they would have that or whatever. But that's kind of, that box had the little talk back on it and things like that. So two, they could always, and I'm sure this happened rarely, but it would happen. You could cut the mic, like let's say Dave is out there. You could turn Dave's mic off, but Dave could still talk and talk into your headset if he had to say something to you that you didn't want to hear on air. That was also a way that they could communicate back and forth, but that was pretty rare. And then I don't think it was not until the Power Pro days that the referee had an earpiece, correct?
And I just bought a walkie-talkie, and so
Yeah,
I give Aubrey Peel a walkie-talkie, and he had an
right.
earpiece. And when I talked to him, I didn't talk to him like I would talk to the announcers, which I
What are
would
you
just
supposedly giving time cues to him?
time cues
Right,
to him, or a time or two might have changed the finish of a
right. And
match.
let him communicate that or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, it was interesting thing. Tanner says, I assume they rehearse what to do ahead of time and then wing it.
So
Uh,
that to a lot of people that don't understand wrestling, and I don't mean that negatively, Tanner. Don't. I didn't say
yes,
that
you
right.
do. Yes, you do.
No, no. What I mean is like if you don't the television part of it or things or whatever. This is what's so different about wrestling, independent wrestling today versus this stuff. You've got guys even into the Power Pro era, but definitely in the 70s and 80s. Okay, you've got professional wrestlers that make their job is being a professional wrestler. They're working 5, 6, 7 nights a week. That is their job. They don't also work at the Jiffy Lube. They are professional wrestlers. Dave Brown, Corey Macklin, Lance Russell, Michael St. John, professional announcers. They're not just hanger-ons that come in through the wrestling company or whatever. They were actual professional announcers. WHBQ, WMC TV, professional production people. That is their job. That's what they do. They produce the top rated news when it was 13 and Dave was there, when it was 5 and Dave was there. The top rated station in a top 50 market. You have talented camera people, you have talented producers, you have talented directors. My point in that is everybody there is a professional at what they do. And so there's nothing to practice per se. I don't remember, and I think like you've mentioned this before, and it wasn't really until developmental came into Memphis, guys wouldn't even work out in the ring before the show. Now, once developmental happened, I think they started doing that because they were kind of more used to doing that in WWE and stuff like that. But you had a format, and now that format that the TV station people got, Randy, that would maybe have segment lengths, the length of an interview, the length of a match, the length of the commercial breaks in between, and just different elements in the show. We have a pre-taped interview here. We're going to be live in the back here. They would get that rundown in that format, and the TV station people would keep that going and keep it on time. And then Randy, you kind of would serve more from a television perspective, more as the producer of the show. Just like in a live newscast, breaking news can happen, segments can go long, and you change stuff. You would communicate that to the director, but then whether it was James or Mark or whoever, they are professional directors employed by the TV station that know how to do that, right? And the same thing with your announcers. Now, the announcers would get, show notes or prep notes or whatever, and they may know, okay, the point of this match is to do this. We're trying to get this over, build this angle, do whatever. And there may be notes on there like, hey, this Kurt Angle guy during the match, mention he was a 96 Olympic champion, mention that, this is his first professional debut. You would have notes in there so the announcers kind of had some things to read. But now Dave and Corey and Lance were professional announcers. They knew how to do that. They knew what their job was. And so that to me is just what's so different about today. Today on an independent show, if you get there an hour early, you'll see everybody walking through every step of their match. The announcers have no clue because they're just a buddy of someone from the wrestling show or whatever. And if they are shooting it, it's some guy with a camera going to YouTube. It's not the Memphis wrestling was a TV show first that was at a professional TV studio with professional announcers and real professional wrestlers. So that is why you got that wholly different experience than what you would get now. See what Tanner's saying. So Tanner says, I assume that as long as they have worked with each other, they were comfortable to do those segments together at some point to where they don't need to rehearse. But what I mean is, were they given the rundown on what to do? So, Randy, you can speak to that. I'll just say briefly that, and I just remember this specifically when I was there with Coco, and Coco would need some work sometimes with his interviews, but you would tell somebody, and Lawler is a different animal, right? But you would tell somebody, hey, Coco, you've got an interview before your match. Here's 4 points that I want you to get across in that interview. And they would be on that paper. Now, how Coco connected the dots to get that interview across is on Coco. But the point is, you want him to get those points across. And so you did not script or write or whatever every single line verbatim of what you wanted him to say. And the same thing if somebody else came out or whatever, you give them the points, but where you get their personality and their whatever is you let them connect the dots, almost like working a match. You don't have every single move of the match scripted out. You know who's going to go over. You know the story you want to tell, but someone who's an actual professional wrestler can get in there and call it in the ring and tell that story. It's the same thing kind of with the interview. Yeah, we know where we want to go, but a Jerry Lawler interview is a Jerry Lawler interview because he's the one doing it. An Eddie Gilbert interview is an Eddie Gilbert interview because he's the one doing it. Randy lays it out. Randy has an idea of where he wants to go with it and what he wants them to say, but you put those characters in there and let them be them to get those points across in their own words. Would you agree with that, Randy?
Yes, and no need to say anything else. Bo says, I never saw a rehearsal there. Most of the towns still had opposite dressing rooms. We were all pros and could go in the ring and do it. And there's a couple of other
Yeah.
comments that I want to talk
Bo just,
to.
I'm sure, has wonderful memories of being cooped up in a tent on July 4th with Cool in the Gang and a bunch of wrestlers. I'm sure Cool in the Gang loved that.
I'm taking these deadgum headsets off because Lance Ritter. Now, Lance, I love you, but that's why you get on freaking people's nerves when you call front row with Bud Row and you keep on and 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 on about stupid stuff that nobody cares about. You keep
Lord.
asking about the Lawler Dundee match, and I keep telling you I don't have it. Adam tells you he don't have it. We have more Memphis wrestling videos than anybody alive, and we don't have it. Why was there no Lawler Dundee match? Does TV5 not have a copy or Lawler Dundee? No! I keep telling you. I keep telling you, Lance. That's why anytime you come on 953.com, front row with Bud Row, every time you or your son one comes on the air, I'll turn the damn radio off because you keep beating things to death. You get on people's nerve. I don't care if you did have one of your sons buy my freaking book and pay me $20 for the book. You probably read the book like you do everything. You think you know more about anything than anybody else, and I tell you right now, you don't know more about wrestling than I can. I can guarantee it right now. So don't watch this show no more. That's what I'm going to tell you.
All
So
right.
let's see. David
Does Lance
Linville.
have any more questions after that?
Somebody said, I hope not. I hope he never watches again. Now, somebody asked how Lance was during TV. He was always a professional. I mean, it was pretty much. He always had a great attitude, and I was just busy at TV days. I'm not saying we never laughed or joked or that sort of thing. I was busy, and they didn't get there. The announcers didn't get there to probably about an hour and 15 minutes before the show started. We'd go right to work, and we would finish our production uh, meeting about 2 minutes before we go in the air, and sometimes they would run to the air and run to the studio and barely make it. One time it was a classic thing, Adam. I don't know if you ever saw this. Dave opens up and says, "Hello again, everybody. It's CWA Wrestling. Lance, Lance will be here in a minute. I'm Dave Brown, and we have this and that." And Lance comes out and sits at the desk, and he is goodbye, never come back. Don't need you here. Go away.
Wow.
Okay.
Yeah, I can remember anytime I went to the studio, the announcers didn't come out until like just right before the show. So, we would get in there and probably sit down 30 minutes maybe before the show aired, and then they would, you kind of get everybody in the studio, get everyone sat down, and then they'd ask, okay, does anybody need to use the restroom, because you're not going to be able to get up and go during the show or go outside or smoke or do nothing. So a lot of people would go and they would use the restrooms kind of by the front lobby there, and then just basically everybody had to kind of be back down in their seat and ready to go 5-10 minutes before the live show. So I do kind of remember that. I remember sometimes they usually wouldn't let us in until everything was kind of set up and good to go. And like you said, Buddy would get there, and when we got there, the truck and trailer would be backed up to that roll up door. And during the Power Pro days, the desk was right in front of that door. During the USWA days, that desk was, or the door was kind of, when you've got that V of where the people were, it was that far one. And if you've ever seen that video where who is it that goes out there and busts the windshield out of Lawler's car? Was that
Rick Rude?
Yeah, Rick Rude. During that time, it wasn't a roll-up door. It was two big wooden doors that just opened up. But if you've ever watched that video, that's where the ring would come in.
Let's, Ben, you say, and this is kind of, the truth is, maybe now that I did that promo on him, I guess I have heat with him, but before that, he had heat with me, and that's why I did that promo saying never watch this show again.
If it was something at the Coliseum, Channel 5 didn't go down there and shoot that. Randy West would be the one that would go to the Coliseum and shoot the video or whatever. Now, the rare one-offs, like if Andy Kaufman was there, or when Lawler did the title with Kurt or whatever, yeah, 5, 3, 13 were probably all there then. But on a typical Monday night, it would be just whomever, whether it was Mike Shields or whether it was Randy West, whoever would be the one that would go down there and shoot it. And so Channel 5 wouldn't even have that. It would just be whatever y'all brought in for them to show, and then you take that tape back with you. And that's the thing too, Channel 5 during the CWA, USWA, they didn't own the wrestling show. So they might run a tape during the show to maybe do instant replays and stuff like that. But hell, the next week they probably just recorded over it. They had no interest in really keeping it like that. It wasn't anything that they owned. Now, I'm sure Randy West probably had a lot of those tapes and stuff, but when the USWA got sold, all that stuff went with it.
Absolutely, no doubt. Now, a quick question as we go to wrap up this show. Appreciate everybody. I didn't get the chance to get anybody online, but that's okay, because certainly with Lance making his comments makes me think why, gives me prime evidence of why I do not have many people just randomly show up. And Tanner says, hey, random question, would you be down to
Would you be down to reacting to a pro wrestling documentary from 2000 that was filmed in 1994? So is it footage from 94 that they did the documentary in 2000? Is that, I'm trying to make sure I've got that part, and I'm sure that question is to you, Randy. Yeah, go ahead.
I would probably watch it and see if I would, depending on if I liked it or hated it, liked it real well or hated it real bad, would be worth my time on.
And I'm sure it depends on the area. Are we talking about 94 Memphis, 94 Portland, 94 Texas?
Now
give us at least. Go ahead.
let me ask you this question: As 95% of this show uh, today, it's been real unusual. You've talked more than me, first of all, and 95% of the show I've produced. How is that different
Yeah,
from what we
back
normally?
afterwards, right? Yeah, yeah. That's definitely been interesting because I had I for anyone who gives a shit, I still have the bus. It's just I've got a building that my ex-wife's oldest son used to have outside that I'm in the process of moving everything into that building. I just hate this being the background on the show.
You
Um,
did it 2 days in a row because yesterday you had to do it to make the
yeah.
save because I was having issues, and today you just helped me out.
Well, and this setup too, the way it is, I've got my work monitors are here, and then my monitor for this is here. And you can see all that blue light from the monitor reflecting on me. So it's not lit well, and it's just the background of my bedroom or whatever. So I don't. It's not the best, but for something like this, it's just kind of a one off or whatever. It's fine. But eventually, I I would like to get my setup to where when I'm on camera, it looks more. Excuse me. It looks more like it did before. So Tanner said it's Southern Discomfort. It's Alabama. So Bullet Bob, Peggy Lee Leather, and Bambi. Hey, so we got LL's got a comment if you want to throw that one on the screen. This is completely backwards. I'm asking you to put stuff on the screen. Says, hey, Randy and Adam, I've been listening in. I haven't been in the loves lately because I've been busy. However, I haven't been feeling great. High five to everyone. Well, we've been in the lives. Okay, you haven't been in the lives watching the shows lately. Gotcha. Yeah, there's so no great to see you. Hate that you haven't been feeling the greatest, but glad always good to hear from you. Glad that you're here. I'm sure Randy would have loved to have you come on the show, but understand if you're not feeling good or whatever. We just appreciate you being here, and Tanner gives you a high five back. And we have somebody else there watching. Is that let's see? Tanner says high five back, and we got a good evening gentleman in there as well. So still got quite a few folks watching. So I know the headsets aren't your favorite thing in the world, but that seems to have fixed all of the issues. Is Cal going to still try to come by at some point this week, or do you know?
Well, he responded to my text this morning, and I told him that the danger. He said he'd try to get here today, and I told him not to worry about it because I'm kind of. I think the thing about these headsets, I think it kind of looks more professional.
Yeah, I mean, and if you can hear and don't have any problem with it, people watching at home, what do y'all think? Do you have a preference with Randy headsets on, headset off, or
I bet they could give two shits.
probably? So we'll
For
we'll
sure.
see if we have any reaction there.
We'll be back Tuesday for talking Memphis wrestling. All I know so far is Michael will be at a ball game, right, Adam?
Yeah, Michael said he would not be here. I think he's throwing out the first pitch for the Trash Pandas. Is that right?
Yes. Whoever the hell they are. And we'll get this one.
It's the Rocket City Trash Pandas. Who doesn't love a good Trash Panda?
Tanner says as long as Randy is present, it is.
As long as you're here, Randy, they don't give a shit how you
I
look.
wouldn't hear. I tried not to say much last night because I was getting that feedback and it was driving me crazy. I apologize for that show last night because I can BLL.
LL says headset off, so she's shitting on you wearing the headset.
That's
Can't
not
win.
shitting on it. How is that shitting on it, for Christ's sakes? Adam's a lot more temperamental and opinionated than you guys think he is. Anyway, but I think
Tanner says he's sorry he doesn't attend like he used to. Well, whose fault is that, Tanner? No, no, I'm joking.
yeah. Tanner, you're one of the ones. I won't try to run you off, but I certainly did. Did I flat out tell Lance not to watch the show again? I think I did, right?
I do.
Have I ever told anybody not to watch? I've blocked a few.
History would make me think you have, but I can't think of one right off. David Linville says he's replying to Tanner. I don't know what Tanner said, but he said, I know one time Lance and Gordon solely were commentating together. Lance and Gordon did commentate together, and unfortunately, it was fucking horrible.
And it was
But
about 3 or 4 weeks.
yeah.
Final take, Adam, real quick.
Final take is I'm glad that we've at least got it to where I'm always worried about the viewer experience, and we don't have the echo. You're able to hear. There's no delay or anything like that. So I'm always happy with that. I'm kind of curious too, a little bit. Sometimes we have just Randy. Sometimes we've got when we have a full panel, like we did a couple weeks ago, we had 5 people on the show. And it's just that kind of changes week to week how many people we have on the show. And we went from being very video driven to now we're very graphic driven with looking at the cards and looking at the photos of the week and everything.
And
And I think,
talk driven as well.
yeah, more talk driven, right? And I feel like a lot of people have enjoyed that more. So, with the people watching, just as part of my final, whatever, do you guys like the format where we kind of went back to the roots to where we have a card or something and then the panel it's more of a panel discussion, right, where we show something, you guys react to it, and then we take viewer input as well, whether it's a card or whether it's pictures or whatever. And I really like it when the pictures are kind of, for lack of a better word, they're kayfabe to the panel. So you throw up a picture and, hey, do you guys know who this is?
Well, if they would read my damn notes, they would know. But obviously, William is the only one that reads and prints my notes. Thank God for that, because he was the one that had to open the show.
And he did a great job. He did a great job opening the show, and then so I watched a little bit of his Blues Doctor podcast because it's kind of neat that we do the show on Tuesdays, and then his podcast drops Tuesday night at midnight.
Yeah, and it's interesting to me because it's out of my comfort zone. He talks about monsters and Bigfoots, and he talks about medicine and cancer. That obviously I'm interested in health stuff. It's very interesting. So check out the Good Doctor. I'll finish by saying Tanner wanted to know if Mean Gene and Lance worked together. Maybe over the years, I would think a time or two. It's a possibility. They were both in the business a long time, but I don't have any recollections of it. And
Not right off. I think the weirdest thing I've ever seen Lance with, we mentioned Gordon, that was in Memphis, but Lance worked with a number of unique people during his time at WCW. There's video out there of him working with Eric Bischoff, on air. So that's kind of neat.
Thanks for helping to make the save tonight.
Yeah, absolutely.
The only thing screwed up is I didn't have sound on the countdown because I never have to do the countdown. And that's why I thought today I needed to, because I don't, since I don't do many Randy Hales show that I always produce it anyway. And Tanner, no problem. We're always asking.
Well, used to in the video clip section, they had some pre-recorded countdowns, and when they did this last update, they kind of got rid of that. I think they have some pre-recorded stuff over there, but it doesn't have a countdown on it.
No, and so there's no worth doing it. So you explained to me how to get sound.
Yeah, if you're going to do a countdown when you add the scene and do it, you pick the time, you get it all set up, and then before you go live, go ahead and start that countdown. And once you hit go live, whatever time you set it for, it'll restart and go from that time. So
but what point do you add the music?
When you first go to add scene and countdown, and then it takes over and you see it on there, you just hover over it and you can drop down and you can change the length and you can put the music on it. And then you just click out of it, do whatever else you need to do. And then before you start the show, click countdown, hit go live, and then it'll start from 2 minutes.
Adam got work to do tonight, radio station work. I got bed to do. Let's see, what do I have tomorrow? I got to
Tomorrow's
start
Thursday.
Ubering at 4 o'clock. I got a 7 o'clock oil change in Paragould, and then I have a 7 o'clock ride to the Memphis Airport on Friday, and I had a ride to Truman today. So that's how I'm doing. I appreciate it, and I'm trying to get all
It's
comments
different ones,
in here.
Tanner. Usually here lately, I've actually been using the old CWA bumper music for the countdown, which was that Walter Murphy? Russian Dressing is the name of that song that was used during CWA. I've got the USWA music. A lot of times I'll just maybe try to use that at the end of the show or the Power Pro music or something. But
Hey, Adam, before we go off the air, I'll have you do this. Uh, Run a 30-second countdown with music.
okay, I'll have to. So if everyone just kind of hang loose, I'll have to set it up. And you won't be able to hear me, but I'll click on countdown and I'll add the music to it. So just hang on a
Okay.
second. And so I'm sure you heard some music on there for this particular show, the Randy Hales show. I don't have any music uploaded to this brand folder. So what I'll just do super quick, I'll change to our Talking Memphis Wrestling brand folder. So everything's going to change.
I'm sure our audience, especially people like Tanner and others, are fascinated about the
So,
behind the scenes stuff. So Adam's
this
working
is
on
the
that now.
full version of that song, Tanner, that playing here. You wouldn't normally hear this part on TV of this particular song, but you'll recognize kind of starting about right here.
That's the bumper.
Yeah, so this is like the first riff of it, and if you listen, it actually starts right there. It's this part right here, and then they would just cut it hard right here and go, and then they would cut right there, but the song actually keeps going. But yeah, so that is an actual song from the 70s. It's Walter Murphy Russian Dressing. And it's just they would use that little 10-second little snippet of it there during that show. And then the actual USWA theme, this theme here, of course, everyone knows, that is an actual production music. And you could correct me if I'm wrong, Randy. I think around 94 or so, when James Estes from the TV station got involved, I think this music and those opens, I think Channel 5 or James put together. All of the previous ones were done by Randy, correct?
Or Mike Shields.
Or Mike Shields, yeah. And so like the original one where you've got we've got the statue. So the way that original open was done is the statue was sitting on like a record player and it was spinning, and they just had it in front of a curtain with a red and blue light, and then they just played the 2001 Space Odyssey music and had the and just had the wrestling, chyron across there. So I think all of the CWA ones were done by the wrestling company, whether it was Mike or Randy. And I think the early USWA ones were done by Randy as well. And some of the graphic part of it maybe have even come from the Dallas group. But then once you get to like 94, the open that has like the Mid-South, the animated like scoreboard over the Coliseum, I don't think Randy did that one. And the USWA with the American flag in the background, I don't think Randy did that. And of course, James did the Power Pro ones, right?
Absolutely, sure did. Thanks everybody for watching, and we appreciate Adam Dunn for being with us. And a lot of people had a lot of great comments, and this was a different type of show. We'll be back Tuesday for Talking Memphis Wrestling. For Adam Dunn, this is Randy Hales, and we're saying bye bye, everybody. Thanks, Adam.